Have you ever wondered what secrets the mountains hide, far from the touch of civilization, where the winds whisper stories that never reach human ears? They say that in the highest peaks, where the sun barely kisses the snow and the air is so thin it burns your lungs, time bends differently, and reality itself seems uncertain. This is not just a tale of towering cliffs and icy paths. This is the story of the Lost Valley of Althoria, a place so hidden that even the most experienced cartographers have doubted its existence, a place that only appears to those the mountains themselves choose to see. Our story begins with a group of travelers, drawn not by treasure or fame, but by an inexplicable pull, a force that seemed to hum beneath their feet like a heartbeat synchronized with the earth. Elena, a cartographer who had mapped regions no human had dared to explore, carried a journal filled with cryptic notes passed down from her ancestors. They spoke of strange lights at dusk, figures that vanished like mist, and voices that called to those who wandered too close. Her companions were equally intriguing. Malek, a botanist obsessed with alpine flora said to hold curative properties beyond science. Jonas, a quiet scholar whose studies of ancient scripts suggested that the mountains were once home to civilizations long erased from history. And Lyra, a mountaineer who had scaled peaks that even the local guides feared to name. They arrived at the edge of the first ridge as dawn broke, the sky painted with strokes of violet and gold. The air was crisp, carrying a scent of frost and pine, and the wind whistled through jagged rocks as if testing their resolve. What struck them immediately was the unnatural stillness. No birds sang, no small animals scurried among the stones. It was as if the mountains themselves were holding their breath. Elena unfolded her worn map, scanning the contours she had traced by candlelight countless nights before. The first marker should be just beyond the hollowed pass, she murmured, her finger trembling slightly as it hovered over the faded ink. The hollowed pass was notorious in local folklore, a narrow canyon rumored to swallow travelers whole, returning only whispers and shadows to their villages. Yet the map she held, a family heirloom, insisted that a path existed, one that led deeper into the heart of Althoria than anyone had dared venture in centuries. As they moved forward, the sun climbing higher, strange phenomena began to manifest. At first, it was subtle, a flicker of movement in the corner of the eye, a chill that seemed to follow only certain members of the group. Then came the shadows, not the kind cast by rocks or trees, but dark, fluid shapes that slithered over stone surfaces, never fully forming, never entirely dissipating. Lyra was the first to speak of them, her voice a mixture of awe and unease. "They're watching," she said, her gaze fixed on a swirling shadow that clung to the cliffside like living smoke. Jonas, ever the rationalist, tried to dismiss it as tricks of light, illusions born of altitude and fatigue. But deep down, even he felt the prickling of intuition, that undeniable sense that something ancient and aware was observing them. By mid-afternoon, they reached the first significant landmark noted in Elena's journal, the Mirror Rock, a monolithic stone so smooth and dark it reflected their images with eerie perfection. As they approached, the air shifted, charged with a static tension. Malek, who had been documenting the native plants, suddenly froze, staring at the rock. "Look," he whispered, pointing to their reflections. But these were not quite their reflections. The figures in the stone moved slightly out of sync, gestures delayed, expressions twisted into hints of things they could not comprehend. Elena stepped closer, her hand reaching instinctively toward the cold surface, and the moment her fingers brushed the stone, a sound like the whispering of 1,000 voices filled her ears. It was not words, not in any language she knew, but a resonant melody that seemed to bypass thought entirely, speaking directly to memory and fear. The group recoiled, hearts pounding. Lyra murmured, "The legends, they were right. This is no ordinary place." They decided to camp nearby, though sleep was fitful, haunted by dreams of floating mountains, inverted skies, and creatures that moved through fog without sound. When dawn broke again, the Mirror Rock revealed another secret. The The reflections were no longer stationary. They moved independently, performing actions the travelers had not, gestures that suggested knowledge of paths and dangers ahead. Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. The journal mentioned such occurrences, but she had always assumed they were metaphorical. Here, in the biting wind and unyielding terrain, metaphor became reality. And so, with cautious steps, the travelers continued, the path winding narrower, the peak steeper, each step a negotiation with the living essence of the mountains. Strange carvings began to appear on stone faces, symbols that seemed to glow faintly at dusk, resembling constellations twisted into forms unknown to modern science. Jonas documented them, his scholarly mind racing to connect them to forgotten civilizations, while Malak noted that the flora around the carvings was unlike any he had cataloged before, bioluminescent at night and exuding aromas that induced vivid visions. Each vision was personal, drawn from memories, fears, and desires, challenging their courage and resolve. But it was not all hallucination. There was guidance too. Subtle hints, almost imperceptible changes in terrain, suggested safe passages and warnings, as if the mountains themselves were leading them. Yet, with every revelation, the sense of mystery deepened. For beyond the hollowed pass, according to the journal, lay the Valley of Echoes, where travelers reported meeting echoes of themselves, or perhaps glimpses of what they could become. Many who entered never returned, not for lack of skill, but because they were confronted with truths they could not face. And so, as the group approached the threshold of the next ridge, with clouds swirling like spirits around jagged pinnacles, they felt the weight of both anticipation and dread. Each step brought them closer to answers and deeper into enigmas, a dance between courage and the unknown. The mountains whispered secrets, and only those willing to listen, truly listen, would survive to tell their tale. The wind had shifted by the time they reached the threshold of the next ridge, carrying with it a faint, metallic scent that was neither pleasant nor repulsive, but undeniably alive. Elena led the way, her hands gripping the straps of her backpack, the journal pressed to her chest as if it were a talisman. The mountains around them seemed to close in, sheer cliffs rising like ancient walls, their surfaces etched with the same faint, glowing symbols they had seen earlier. Shadows danced along these faces, and at times, it seemed as if the cliffs themselves were breathing, exhaling gusts of wind that whispered in a language older than human memory. Malak stopped abruptly, kneeling to examine a cluster of iridescent flowers growing between two jagged stones. Their petals shimmered with a color he could not name, oscillating between deep indigo and emerald green, and a soft hum emanated from them, vibrating through the soles of his boots. "They're communicating," he murmured, almost to himself, as the others gathered around. Jonas frowned, examining the flowers closely. "It's not sound as we know it. It's resonance, some kind of energy pattern. They respond to presence, maybe even intent." Lyra, ever the skeptic, frowned and brushed the petals with gloved fingers. The flowers pulsed in response, faintly lighting up, as if acknowledging her touch. "I've climbed peaks in every continent," she said quietly, "but nothing has ever felt alive like this." They pressed onward, following the faint traces of a path that seemed to exist more in memory than in reality. Each step forward demanded concentration. Loose rocks would shift, revealing new formations, or collapsing to hide what had been previously visible. Elena noticed that her compass spun unpredictably, unable to settle on a true north. "It's as if the mountains reject ordinary navigation," she whispered. "They demand we follow intuition, not instruments." As they ascended, fog began to gather in the crevices, thick and cold, swirling around them in ghostly eddies. Within it, they saw movement, figures human-like, but impossibly tall and thin, appearing and vanishing without sound. The shadows moved in coordination, almost performing a ritual, their presence both alluring and terrifying. Jonas, notebook in hand, tried to sketch them, but each time he looked down, his sketches had changed, showing forms he had never drawn, twisting into symbols that resonated with the carvings on the cliffs. Night fell without warning, darkness engulfing the group faster than any sunset should allow. The stars above were strange. Constellations they recognized seemed rearranged, forming patterns that mirrored the carvings they had observed. In this unnatural night, the temperature dropped sharply, yet they felt no cold where they stood, only a prickling sensation as if unseen eyes traced their every motion. Elena suggested they make camp near a sheltered ledge. They gathered rocks to form a small fire, though the flames flickered weakly, as if the very air resisted combustion. Around them, the fog thickened, and whispers returned, soft and melodic, almost coaxing them to speak, to share their thoughts aloud. At first, it was comforting, but then the voices began to twist words, pulling memories from their minds, reshaping them into scenes of places they had never been, of events that had never occurred. Or had they? Lyra shivered and turned her gaze to the fog. "It's showing us possibilities," she said. "Or maybe warnings." Sleep, when it came, was fragmented. Dreams were vivid, almost tangible. Elena dreamt of a staircase carved into stone, winding upward endlessly, each step revealing visions of past explorers who had disappeared. Malak dreamt of a garden suspended in midair, where flowers hummed symphonies of color, beckoning him to step beyond the edge. Jonas wandered through an ancient library, books alive with shifting letters, rewriting histories in languages he both knew and did not. Lyra walked across a frozen lake that reflected not the sky, but the deepest fears and desires of her soul. They awoke at dawn to an eerie calm, the fog retreating as if granting them passage. The mirror rock had transformed overnight. Where once their reflections moved independently, now the stone was opaque, showing only the faintest shimmer of what might lie within. Elena traced her fingers over the surface, feeling vibrations that pulsed like a heartbeat. She realized that the mountains were not just observing. They were communicating, guiding those who dared listen with patience and cryptic gestures. By midday, they reached the crest of the ridge that marked the entrance to the Valley of Echoes. The air changed immediately. It was heavier, charged with an energy that made their skin tingle. Shadows of the mountains stretched unnaturally, bending toward the valley as if inviting them in. The first glimpses of the valley below were breathtaking and unsettling. Mist clung to its floor, rolling like living water. Trees, twisted and gnarled, bore luminescent fruit that pulsed softly, and streams reflected skies that were not their own. And then, they saw them, echoes of travelers long gone, translucent figures walking paths parallel to their own. Some mimicked their actions perfectly, others moved in strange sequences, performing tasks they had not yet undertaken. Elena's heart raced. This is it. The valley," she whispered. Jonas noted the symbols on the valley floor, etched in stone and earth, forming patterns that resonated with the carvings higher up. Malak knelt to examine a luminous fern. Its glow seemed to project visions, showing him the flora of distant peaks, untouched by human hands, thriving in isolation. Lyra, eyes wide, realized that every step they had taken had been guided, each choice subtly influenced by the mountain itself, leading them here. "It's alive," she breathed. "Every rock, every plant, it's alive and aware." They ventured further, the echoes of past explorers growing more vivid, interacting with the landscape, offering silent guidance, teaching the rules of this hidden world. Each step demanded respect, for the mountain's intelligence was profound, neither hostile nor benign, but impartial. And as they walked, Elena could not shake the feeling that their journey was only beginning, that the Valley of Echoes held deeper secrets, truths that could redefine what they believed possible, not only in the mountains but in the very nature of reality itself. The deeper they descended into the Valley of Echoes, the more surreal their surroundings became. The mist clung to them, not like fog, but almost as a sentient presence, brushing against skin and clothing with a light, deliberate touch. Every sound was amplified and warped, The crunch of rocks beneath their boots echoed as if the valley had swallowed it and released it in whispers, distant laughter, or cries from places unseen. Elena led the way, feeling the weight of the mountain's awareness pressing on her senses, guiding her in ways she couldn't yet name. Shadows of previous travelers appeared more clearly now, some frozen mid-step, others moving in loops that hinted at their last moments before vanishing. Jonas recorded these phenomena, noting that the echoes behaved like reflections of intent, fragments of consciousness trapped or preserved by the valley's unique energy. "It's as if the valley remembers," he said, his voice tight with awe. Malek was entranced by the luminescent flora that bordered the streams and stone paths. Some flowers opened only in their presence, petals radiating light patterns that seemed to respond to gestures, thoughts, and emotions. Touching a flower often triggered visions, a map of invisible rivers, or glimpses of peaks obscured by time and fog, or memories not their own, as if the valley could pull history from the air itself. Lyra, always attuned to danger, noticed that the terrain itself was shifting subtly, revealing hidden paths and concealing treacherous drops. The valley demanded attention, intuition, and respect. One wrong step could lead to hours, or years, lost in loops of mist and echo. They came upon the first ancient structure, half swallowed by the earth, its stone walls etched with symbols that pulsed faintly in rhythm with Elena's heartbeat. A doorway, dark and deep, led into what appeared to be a subterranean chamber. Jonas stepped forward, lantern in hand, the light casting dancing reflections across the walls. Inside, the air was thick and charged, humming with resonance. Echoes of voices greeted them, not in words, but in layered tones that seemed to communicate knowledge, warnings, and histories simultaneously. One echo lingered longer than the others, a figure indistinct yet somehow recognizable, performing actions that mirrored their own thoughts, almost as if the valley itself was conversing in gestures. Elena reached out, and her hand passed through the form, feeling neither warmth nor cold, only a gentle pressure, like the touch of a memory. Outside, the valley reacted instantly. Streams shimmered more vividly, shadows stretched and contorted, and the mist twisted into shapes that suggested animals and humans, both real and imagined. Malek documented everything in sketches and notes, though he struggled to keep pace. Each observation seemed to create new phenomena in real time. By midday, they reached the Heart Stream, a river of liquid light that flowed with a strange viscosity, reflecting visions of their journey in fragmented mosaics. Elena knelt beside it, her reflection shifting into multiple versions of herself, some older, some younger, some who had never existed. Jonas traced the edges of the stream, noting that its flow patterns corresponded to the carvings they had seen on cliffs above. "It's a map," he said, "not of terrain, but of experience, of movement, choices, and consequences." They followed the river, discovering that stepping into the reflections could trigger visions, sometimes beautiful, sometimes terrifying, of what might have been or could become. Lyra tested it cautiously, stepping lightly into a pool that mirrored her image. For a heartbeat, the valley held her, and then she saw herself climbing peaks never charted, crossing skies streaked with unfamiliar constellations, and walking paths that no human had set foot upon. She stumbled back, breathless, her mind alive with possibilities she could scarcely comprehend. Elena noticed subtle interactions between the echoes and the travelers. Some echoes seemed curious, approaching only when observed, while others recoiled, vanishing if acknowledged. It became clear that the valley responded not only to their presence, but to their perception, their attention, and perhaps their intentions. They came upon an enormous stone circle at the center of the valley, each stone carved with intricate spirals and symbols that resonated with a soft, almost musical hum. Standing within the circle, the group felt an immediate shift in perception. Colors became sharper, sounds more layered, and time itself seemed elastic, stretching moments into hours or collapsing hours into moments. Jonas realized the circle acted as a nexus of memory and consciousness, a focal point where the valley's awareness concentrated. Malek knelt among the stones, touching the carvings, and a vision overtook him. Mountains folding into valleys, peaks growing and receding like living creatures, streams flowing backward, carrying light and sound in impossible directions. He saw travelers from ages past and future, their faces twisted in wonder or fear, all interacting with the valley's will. "It's a record," he whispered, voice trembling. "Not just of what has happened, but of all that could happen." Elena understood then that the valley was not a place to conquer or merely explore. It was a living archive, a sentient landscape that preserved knowledge, history, and possibility in ways humans were only beginning to glimpse. As night fell once again, the valley glowed faintly, lit from within by unseen sources. The mist became thicker, swirling around them, forming shapes that suggested animals, mountains, and even skies beyond comprehension. And then, from the edge of the circle, a sound unlike anything they had heard, a chorus of tones, harmonizing with their own heartbeat and breaths, forming a melody that seemed to draw the very fabric of the valley toward them. It was mesmerizing, terrifying, and beautiful. Each member of the group felt a connection to the valley, an acknowledgement of their presence, and simultaneously, an awareness of their limitations. They understood, without words, that the valley offered knowledge and insight, but only to those willing to surrender preconceptions and embrace the unknown. Elena recorded it all, the journal now alive with new symbols that had never existed before, etching themselves onto the pages as if guided by the valley's will. Jonas, Malek, and Lyra each experienced moments of clarity, fleeting yet profound, glimpses of truths that transcended ordinary understanding. And as they prepared to rest once more, beneath skies that shimmered with alien constellations, they knew their journey was only beginning. For the Valley of Echoes held deeper mysteries yet, places untouched even by the valley's own memory, realms where thought and reality merged, and where those brave enough to listen might discover answers beyond imagination, or become echoes themselves, forever woven into the living memory of the mountains. The following dawn broke with a surreal clarity, as if the valley itself had orchestrated the sun's rise to illuminate its secrets. The mist lingered, but now it seemed purposeful, swirling in patterns that guided the travelers toward the far end of the valley. Every echo they had seen before appeared to converge, forming a path not carved by stone, but by memory and intention. Elena led the group, her hand occasionally brushing the air, sensing subtle vibrations that indicated the safest course. As they moved, the valley revealed its final enigma, the shifting summit, a peak that appeared distant, yet seemed to advance toward them with every step, its outline twisting and reshaping as though it were alive. Jonas traced the formations around them, realizing the carvings, the echoes, and the river's flow all pointed to this summit. "It's the heart of the valley," he said. "Whatever it holds, it's the source of everything we've seen." The ascent was unlike any climb they had undertaken. The rocks shifted beneath their feet, forming steps just wide enough for a single foot, then dissolving into mist. Shadows of previous travelers whispered encouragement, caution, or sometimes confusion, guiding them without words. Malek stopped periodically to document strange plants growing only in these fleeting footholds, bioluminescent flora whose glow pulsed faster as they climbed higher. Hours felt like minutes, yet simultaneously, minutes stretched into infinity. Finally, they reached a plateau near the summit, a place where the valley opened to reveal its deepest secret, a colossal mirror-like pool, perfectly still, reflecting not the sky above, but a vision of every peak and valley they had traversed. Elena approached it, her reflection, and every version of herself she had glimpsed, merging into one luminous form. The echoes gathered around the pool, their presence now more solid, more knowing. They did not speak, yet a profound understanding passed between them and the travelers. The valley did not grant power, nor did it demand tribute. It revealed truth, possibilities, and the interconnectedness of experience, memory, and intention. Each traveler stepped to the edge, gazing into the liquid mirror. Lyra saw herself traversing mountains no human had touched, finding joy and courage beyond imagination. Malak glimpsed flora that would heal and inspire generations, understanding that knowledge gained here transcended ordinary science. Jonas perceived history's long erased, civilizations whose wisdom could reshape understanding of the past. And Elena saw the valley itself, alive, aware, eternal, a living archive of existence, waiting for those willing to witness and respect its mysteries. A final vibration pulsed through the air, as if the valley acknowledged them, their courage, and their willingness to embrace the unknown. Then the mist lifted suddenly, revealing the true summit behind the pool, a place of calm and stillness, where the mountains touched the sky and the air itself felt sacred. There, they understood that the Valley of Echoes was not a destination to conquer, but a journey to experience. The knowledge, visions, and echoes would remain with them, transforming perception, instilling patience, humility, and wonder. As they descended, the valley gradually receded behind them, fading into mist and shadow. Yet, they carried its memory in every step, every thought, every heartbeat. Even as they returned to ordinary mountains, ordinary skies, the echoes lingered, reminding them that some places exist beyond maps, beyond words, beyond time itself. A living reminder that mystery, awe, and truth are inseparable in the heart of the mountains. And so, the Lost Valley of Althoria became legend, not because it could be found on any chart, but because it would live forever in the minds and souls of those who were brave enough to enter, listen, and see. The mountains whispered, as they always had, and for Elena, Malak, Jonas, and Lyra, the whisper became a song, eternal, guiding them onward in all the journeys yet to come.